All right, good. We're starting a new series this morning, Relational Vampires, and loving those people that suck the life out of you. And so the next 4 weeks or so, I'm sure it's not applicable, but I know I'm working on a few things, so join me as I sit at Jesus' feet and learn a few things. All right? And I'm very excited about this week because, again, let's just get it out of the way. We're going to talk about people that are hard to love is the control freak in your life. Okay? So, we're going to talk about loving people because God loves us, and we are called to love one another. And let's admit it, some people are harder to love than other people. I have fallen into that category myself. It depends who you're talking to. And you do recognize that some people are easier to love than others, right? Okay, that's cool. Now, don't point. This is going to be one of those pointing or nudging sermons. Don't do that. Because that means you're a control freak. All right? And I'll point that out every now and again because I just love, I love our church because we're slowly learning that it's okay to be excited in God's house. Amen. I happen to know for sure that some of you yell at your TV this afternoon. But you can't dare get up enough energy in God's house to do this. And you know why? Because you're a control freak. Don't you dare tell me to clap in God's house. I don't do that. You're a control freak. There's just so many nuances to this. It's scary. And so relational vampires are people that suck the life out of you. And these are the people that after, I want to be that person when I come in the room, they say, oh, he's here. Instead of, oh, he's here. See the difference? Same wording, just a different attitude and different heart. And how do we love people that suck the life out of us? I'm going to hopefully give you some of those things. But if you're here and you're a control freak, I'm going to make fun of you like mercilessly and shamelessly. Is that okay? And you know what you'll do if you're a control freak? You'll get your undies in a bunch, and you'll stomp a little, maybe hold your breath, and I want you to know in Jesus' name, I don't care. I don't care. I want to bring some things to light in your life and in mine. And the great part is, if you want to see a control freak, we have a ladies' room and a men's room with a mirror. By all means, if you need an example to look at. So how many of you, watch this. Now, how many of you know a control freak? Now, look around. Keep your hand up. Now, if someone's pulling your hand down, they're a control freak. If you refuse to put your hand up ever in church, you're a control freak. How am I doing? Did I offend everybody yet? I could tell not everybody laughed. So control freaks are usually people that have some kind of authority or moral authority, or they've earned it, or they have a position in your life that they can speak into your life. And basically, a control freak is someone who abuses that power and that position. Not intentionally. They're not malicious people. They actually like you. They actually want your best. They just don't know how to go about it. They're actually insecure people who have to, overcompensate because they're not all that and they know it, and they don't want you to know it, but we now know it because they overcompensate, right? This is not rocket science. They're needy. They're hurting people. Have you ever heard? It's not a Bible verse, but I think it's a Bible principle. Hurt people. That's all there is to it. They don't mean to. As a matter of fact, we're going to look and jump into where Peter is not intentionally hurting anybody, but he takes control of the situation because that's what we do. I don't know about you, but I like to fix things. Sandy comes to me, ladies, you'll appreciate this, I think, because first I have to preface it with this. Men and women don't think alike at all. All right? And it's okay to say that in this room. Don't go out there in public and say it. But we don't think alike. Sandy will come to me and want to unload what is burdening her. And guys, what do you want to do? I want to fix it. No, I just want you to listen. That's not fair. Gentlemen, give me a little backup here. I know you're afraid of the women in the room, but isn't that right? I want to fix it. So, one of the children is giving, well, let me beat the crap out of him. And, no, I just want you to listen. So now sometimes she comes to me and confesses first, I just want you to listen. Here's another problem at our house. I want to tell you something that I had a problem on Sunday morning, but I don't want to talk to the pastor. I just want to talk to you. What? I find them to be this one and the same person. And I want to fix what's going on in God's house, and I want to go fix everything that's going on in Sandy's life, and I want to help. And maybe that's a control thing. I don't know. But just listening, I don't think is fair because we're geared. Look, present me with a problem, and I'll fix it. You know what I love in my life? I'm very open, actually, and I will ask for opinions and get options. And everybody goes, oh, no, whatever you think. And so I make a decision, and then all of a sudden the options come out of the woodwork. Am I the only one? Right? Is that not awesome? Oh! Don't slap now. That's a sign, and you're on the second row. So that so not intentionally malicious people. They're sometimes an emotional black hole. No matter what you do, it's not enough. They need more attention, and they want more attention. And they want more ability than they actually have. And so that's when they get a foothold and they find a way. Sometimes they're passive-aggressive. Are you familiar with that? That I'm going to try to use nice words, but I'm still going to slap you with them. Are you familiar with that? And that's a control freak thing. And sometimes they'll pout, they'll stomp, they'll whine, they'll complain. Here's my favorite, the silent treatment. I used to be good at that. And I prided myself on how good I was at that. How stupid is that? And if you ever heard this, I walk around on eggshells around them. If people have ever described you as that, you're a control freak. Have you heard that phrase? Have you used that phrase? And I listened to one guy who does marriage stuff, because I like to bone up. And he said, I've only heard that from wives. Oh, I always have to walk around on eggshells around him. And I want you to know my experience as the pastor of this church, I've only heard it from husbands. Just as I am. So I guess there's enough eggshells to go around. So you're thinking of someone? Please don't point. Please don't point up here. I'm working on it. But control freaks have two weapons that they use. They use threats. They say it or they imply it. They do that passive-aggressive thing. You better do it or you'll regret it is the message. You better perform like I want you to perform or there will be punishment of some form or another. And if you don't do what I want you to do, you're going to pay. And you're always on edge and you're on those eggshells around this person. You know, I've worn this. This is just good Bible. If you're in a marriage relationship and you just keep threatening to leave, that's a control freak. Because I can pull this button and I can use this escape hatch anytime I want. When I've shared much of my marriage with you, so what the heck, right? Sandy's here this week and she's in the other building, I think, right? Okay, that's one of the Brianisms around here. Is Cindy in the room? Anyway, and as we got closer to our wedding day, I kept reminding her, I said, you realize I'm going to be here like for the rest of your life. And she went, why do you keep saying it like that? Like it's a threat. It's not a threat. When you don't want me there, I'm still going to be there. And I just want to make sure, because here's, you have children, and then I went from being Sandy's husband to being the father of her children. Anybody? Look, you're afraid. You guys just, you can't say that out loud. There's women in the room. I became the father of the children. Well, those children, some of them are in their 30s now. And guess who it is? Here I am. And I don't look anything like the guy she married. Anything. And I'm aware of that too. And so, be careful. The other weapon that a control freak uses, they use threats. And again, it's not just like your health or anything. It's, I'm going to make your life uncomfortable. And then the other weapon they use is guilt. Love, there's nothing like a good guilt trip. After all I've done for you, you won't do this one thing. I thought we were friends. Obviously, I can't count on you. Things like that, just a little jab. How about this? You ever have a friend? I've had this happen to me, and I find it ironic. I've heard phrases like this, and you call yourself a Christian? All of a sudden, my unsaved friends are like theologians. and know how I should be. I find that amazing, and I think that should click something in our heads. Some Christian you are, because after all, especially right now in the society, you're not tolerant. I'm as tolerant as Jesus was tolerant. How about we get back to what Jesus used to say? Well, you got to be loving. You know what love is? I read this in a book recently. I love this. As a follower of Jesus Christ, you know when I love you, you know what that means is? I want God's best for you. That's love. I'm going to steal that and make my new definition. I want God's best for you, not your best for you. Not what you think is best for you, not what I think is best for you, but what God thinks is best for you. That's true love. And so, well, then let's bring it down to family relationships. You never call. You're always too busy. I could be dead for 2 weeks. My mother, who is now in heaven, a Mother's Day went by, and some of you mothers are going to hate me for this, but so be it. I work on Mother's Day. I don't know if you knew that. So I went over Saturday night, brought her a plant, brought her a card, Happy Mother's Day. I thought, And because I didn't do it on Mother's Day, she didn't talk to me for 2 weeks because that's the Christian thing to do. And I'm not asking for any amens or any disagreements because some of you ladies will just stand up and let me have it. You're always too busy. I could be dead for 2 weeks and you would never know. No, we'd know. The quiet would be deafening. Oh, all right. Some of you are alive. Very nice. Come on. Control freaks. We love to control every bit of, it's one of the hardest parts of being a parent because you are in control, or you should be. That's right. And then when they get to be, I don't even know what the number is. But sooner or later, you kind of have to go the other way and think, oh, do it, whatever you think. And you know better because you're hopefully the adult, hopefully. And you taught them better than that, and you kind of go, oh, no, okay, go ahead. Did everybody understand that? Some of you did. Okay. And it's hard to let go of those things. And how do we love these who are trying to control us? This is the key, because they exist. And I'll be honest with you, there's some of you in the room. I love this. This is a great topic for me because, let's admit it, none of you want my job. You just want to tell me how to do it. You know what that makes you? Thank you. Thank you for sitting up front. Speaking of a control freak, she thinks she's intimidating me. Do you see this? Bring it on, Vicki. So how do we love these people? I've seen this in the ministry, in Christian followers of Christ. This ought not so to be, especially in the ministry. Well, and again, I'm really open, but I'm going to stick with what the Word of God says and how to run things and what to do and what our goal is and what our mission is. And I've had people come up and say, hey, we should be doing this. It doesn't fit in with what we're supposed to be doing, so it takes a back seat. And you know what I get? And you get your undies in a bunch, and you get all quiet, and so I can feel your silence when you walk by me. Cut it out, because I want you to know I don't bring it home with me. My pastor taught me that. I'll never forget, there was a Bible study group, and that scares me to death, and I have reasons for that. But they would get together, and they invited someone from the church, of course, because that's what we do. When we're control freaks and we don't get our way, we try to gather a small group of people and persuade them that we're right. This is my world. And people were, when I was growing up in the church I grew up in, there was a small group that they disagree with the pastor. I mean, they would come and try to stare him down. It was just stupid isn't a word. It was dumb. All right. And then they invited someone to lunch, and they sat around, and this guy went back to the pastor and said, yeah, I went to lunch with them, and do you know what they did? All during lunch, they talked about you. And my pastor's awesome. He just looked back at this person and said, I had lunch today too, and I didn't talk about them. And you see how that, all right. This is real world stuff, real practical. I hope you like it. But in Matthew 16, we get into Bible here. Matthew 16, there's a story about Jesus and Peter. And Peter's sitting there. And now at this stage in Peter's ministry, he is known for jumping out there in passion. And I love passion. but unless it's like actually guided by the wisdom of God's word, be careful, because we're all passionate. Some of us are passionate about really dumb things. And I won't make that list because I'm in enough trouble as it is. But Peter jumps in there and tries to control the situation that Jesus is running. Now, I love this. He's explained to his disciples that he's going to Jerusalem, he's going to suffer, he's going to give his life a ransom for many, he's going to be raised back in 3 days after that, and Peter jumps in and says, oh, no, you're not. Let's read it. Matthew 16, verse 21, chapter 16, verse 21 says this. So you have to excuse me, I've had a cold or something all week, and so I'm very medicated, which always makes for a fun time here at Bay State. All right, then Jesus began to tell his disciples plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem, that he would suffer many terrible things at the hands of the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of the religious law, and he would be killed, but on the third day he'd be raised from the dead. But Peter took him aside and began to reprimand. Now, who's Peter reprimanding? Jesus. I suggest you never do that. He brings Jesus aside and reprimands him. I got to find my place. And for saying such things, stop talking like that. If you've never heard that phrase, by all means, go into the ministry. And he says to Jesus, he's reprimanding, he says, heaven forbid, Lord, he said, this will never happen to you. Jesus, you know those things you just said, that's just not true. Do you see how dangerous the situation this is? In essence, Peter is saying, not on my watch. Not if I have anything to say about it. And I think Jesus was pretty clear, Peter, you don't have anything to say about it. This is why I came. And you can't alter my mission so it fits in with your schedule and your thinking. And then in verse 23, Jesus returned to Peter and said, and Jesus was so loving, turned to Peter, gave him a hug and said, and whispered in his ear, get behind me, Satan. Try that with your neighbor. Go ahead, I'll give you 3 seconds. How'd that go over? You are a dangerous trap to me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view and not from God's. Then Jesus said to his disciples, if any of you want to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross, and follow me. That's very hard for some of us because, let's admit it, I'm getting older. I have more experience. I can tell you all kinds of things in life, what not to do. Anybody here other than me screw up? Anybody here? All right, excellent, good. I'm going to start a small group, just all of us screw-ups. Anybody here have issues? There's more of you. That's going to be a bigger small group, but okay, well, I don't know what we'll call that one. Good for you. And I'll tell you what, the older I get, the more I realize what I don't know. Anybody? I was a genius when I was 20. I was a genius, or so I thought. So I'm going to give you 3 things to know. If you're here, you know a control freak, this is what you're going to need to know to love them anyway, because that's what we're called to do. I'm not asking you to shut off everybody, but you might want to put up a guardrail or 2. But here, number 1 is this. Know what you're called to do. Now, the word called in Christianese, I try to avoid it. Because, well, Pastor, you're called into the ministry. Doesn't that sound like something? I've been called into the ministry. I know a lot of guys who find that there's a license to do whatever I want. Because, hey, I'm the pastor. It must be right. No. But call just means someone over there wants me over there, so they say, hey, you. You know what you're called to do as a follower of Jesus Christ? Know God and make him known. Now, hey, you got something we didn't even take an offering for that. You have to know God as best as you can and then to make him known. Put him on display. You've heard it. You've heard it here. Jesus, his mission, he was called to do, he was called to seek and to save that which is lost. He was called to give his life a ransom for many. He was called to be killed and be a sacrifice sufficient to pay for my sin and yours, and then raised to life to give us all the confidence in the world that when I put my faith and my life in his hands, I got this. And I can believe it with all my heart because there's an empty tomb. So, define what you're called to do. Now, some of you might have a special calling. I shy away from that kind of talk because I believe I'm not worthy of the position that God has placed me in. It's not false humility. I think someday I'm going to step down. A new pastor will come in here and take you to the next level. I believe that, and I'm okay, and I just love being part of the Jesus story. That's honest to goodness. When we started Bay State, I had a pastor friend of mine walk around, because as a pastor, you think every place our church meets is like a cathedral. And it was, 600 square feet. And we walked around it. Literally. And there was a wall between the two rooms, so that was 300 square feet each. I had whopping 30 chairs, and that's rounding up. And he said, wow, this is nice. I said, I know it's going to sound corny, but I just want to make a difference. And my pastor friend looked at me and said, yeah, that sounds corny. And I'll tell you what. Again, words of my pastor. Last night was exciting in God's house. We had 8 people make a public profession of their faith in baptism. And if that doesn't excite you, excite you. Not, it should excite you, so could you notice there was a little pause there? I bet when you're watching football this afternoon, there won't be a pause. Do you see? Seriously, let's just be excited about what's exciting. Is that not exciting? Is that not our mission? Is that not what we do to know God and to make him known? Because that's what we do. And we need to learn that because I have a sin nature too, and what used to excite me was the things of God, and so I had to learn to be excited about what excites God. I also had to learn what breaks God's heart should break your heart. Our world is upside down and on fire. Does it break your heart or does it just make you angry until the next vote? Oh, there's that pause again. Am I right or should I just keep my mouth shut from now on? Because I think we should Jesus overlooked a crowd because they had no leadership and they were just scattered around. Does that not explain our world? And how about, let's go all the way back to the book of Judges, and every man did what was right in their own eyes. 7 times that cycle went through the book of Judges, and God always was the redemption at the end. And if you've ever read the last chapter of Judges, it is not a happy ending at all. So know what you're called to do. If you're a follower of Christ, and there's a control freak in your life, and there probably is, know what you are called to do. And if you do need help with that, it's to know God and make him known. And there'll be more specific things. But again, if it doesn't line up with what the Bible already says, it probably wasn't from God, so please save me that. If you're a man and you're called to be a husband to your wife. If you're a lady and you're married, you are called to be the wife to your husband. Not the way you think it should be, but the way God thinks it should be, because that's love, isn't it? I want God's best for you. How about parents to children? We have a lot of COVID babies. I got to be honest with you, I wouldn't want to raise children today. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't. And if you're not aware, Satan wants your children. Period. I'll say it if no one else has got the guts to say it. He wants your children. He's always wanted your children. I can show you through history how he's wanted your children. But we actually have to go above and beyond our belief and show them in a very practical way, day to day. Because how many of you parents would say, all honestly, you cannot fool your children? They know. And they are honest, aren't they? They don't say, Dad, you look husky. No, Dad, you're fat. Right? And so they're honest, and you can't fool them, so you kind of weigh a lot of things, what's going on, through their eyes. But parents, if you have children, you are called to parent your children. I'm going to say this because I keep hearing it on stuff I listen to. It doesn't take a village, it takes a mom and a dad. Amen. And that's God's design. The problem is, I like people to like me. You like people to like you? I love that. Matter of fact, the more you like me, the more I will like you back, because I want to just suck that, because control freaks suck the life out of me. They leave me tired and empty. But people who love me, that's very filling to me. You? Isn't that how that works? And I want to be that person. I want to fill some lives. I want to pour my life into some people. And many here, you feel better when people like you. You're a people pleaser too, and you might not like that terminology, but I like people to be happy with me. I do. And but people pleasing is like a form of idolatry. If you don't like me and I'm going to fix something and change something, that's a form of idolatry. Putting people's opinion of you ahead of what God is calling you to do, that's idolatry. Do you see how it takes the place? Here's a little phrase, you can write it down. Calling clarifies. If you know what you're here to do, come what may, and if a control freak tries to get in your way and slow you down, love them anyway. But Jesus trumps them every time. And I said Trump in front of some of you, and I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Let me take a drink. Come on, let's admit it. I could split this church right down the middle. That's why we don't have a center aisle. All right? Keep going. I got 2 pages left. Okay. But calling clarifies. Lots of people have a plan for my time and my schedule. I have a very flexible schedule, and I didn't realize. I thought, wow, this is going to be great. I have a very flexible schedule. And I have found people that decided they're gonna schedule my stuff. Is that not amazing? Hopefully that's not you, but if it is, stop it. My schedule's weird. Any of you have ever got a call at 10 o'clock at night and said, hey, I'm in jail, could you come and... Anybody? Not great. And actually my pastors would say, hey, you know what happened tonight didn't happen just tonight. It took years to get to this point. I'll see you in the morning. There's a certain wisdom to that. But then you had to realize you can't save everyone, you can't meet everyone's needs, and you can't do everything. Matter of fact, if you try to do everything for everybody and please everybody, you'll please nobody, if you're familiar with that. And if you're not, let me just give that to you. Don't learn it the hard way. And when you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing no one. Calling creates clarity. So what does every controlling person have in common? Ready? Drum roll, please. Every controlling person has at least one person who allows it. Now, I'm not going to start fights with controlling people because that doesn't work. I won't just shut them off anymore because that doesn't work, and actually that controls me. I don't like that. So, matter of fact, it makes me you, and I hate that. I hate that, and I refuse, and I'm going to be conformed to the image of Jesus Christ. But every controlling person has at least one person who allows it, and that person who does the controlling has the problem, and so do we. We consistently allow it to happen. Now here, I'm going to give you some strategy, but anyway, number 2 is this. I told you I'd give you 3 things. Know what you're called to do and stick with it. Know God and make Him known. That'll keep you busy. It'll also help you to filter out some of the unnecessary things you do in your life that aren't going to matter in eternity. They're just not. Number 2 is this. Know when someone is controlling you. Because again, sometimes they can be passive-aggressive and they're just pulling the strings. And Jesus said, this is what I must do. He told the disciples, it's God's will, me to go to Jerusalem, give my life, a ransom for many, and then 3 days later be raised from the dead. And at that point, I got to admit, I don't think any of them realized what Jesus was saying. But Peter stands Jesus down, and Peter's doing Jesus a favor. I don't know what this crazy talk is over here, but Peter knew better than the Lord Jesus himself. And that word reprimand just scares the life out of me. So he tries to take control. No, not on my watch. Nuh-uh, you don't understand. You don't understand, Jesus. I want you to feel this. You don't understand, Jesus. I'm on your team. You got me. Do you see how reversed that is? I'm supposed to be so thankful that Jesus has chosen me and is on my team. But no, I heard a guy say this, and now I do truly appreciate it. It's an older gentleman in the ministry, and he was preaching at a conference I was at, and he said, have you ever run into that person in your church, guys, who gets up in arms about some of the dumbest things, and they find that weirdest verse to try to back up what they're saying? And he said, and he used this phrase, he goes, the ones who are trying to protect baby Jesus from you. And I thought, that's the craziest, my head I have. I've had people defend. I promise you, Jesus doesn't need me to defend him. Matter of fact, he said, don't you even take revenge. I got that covered too. But no, not only am I going to take revenge for myself, I'm going to take it for Jesus. You've offended Jesus. You know how hard it would be to offend Jesus? He got spit in the face, got his beard torn out, and then they nailed his body to a piece of wood. And he wasn't offended. Matter of fact, he came looking forward to it. Why did the Bible say? Because of the joy set before him, which was me. I'm going to protect Jesus. I'm going to protect Jesus' church. I'm going to protect his money. I'm going to... Seriously? All right, I'm not going any further with that. But Jesus, number two, when some people, they don't know they're being controlled, or they don't know it. And so Peter, was he the worst guy in the world? No. Did he hate God? No. Did he plan to distract from Jesus saving people? No. Not intentionally. No. A moment before, he had just won Jesus Jeopardy. Jesus looked at his disciples and said, hey, what's the talk around town? Who do they say that I am? And they said, some think you're John the Baptist, which I find amazing. I think John was still in prison, or he's beheaded, so then, just show us the mark. Or they're Elijah, or the prophet. Some of them say you're the Messiah. And then he changed the question, which we should all ask in our lifetime. Who do you say that I am? And Peter, of course, doesn't engage his brain much, but he got this one right. He jumps in the middle and says, you're the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus said, well, it wasn't humans that told you that. It was my Father who told you that. He just won that. Truly, just look in your Bible. It's right there, right before. No, Jesus, no, So you can be well-meaning. You could have a good heart and still have trouble controlling other people because that's how we are. Why did Peter try to control Jesus? And here, it's right in this passage that we looked at. Because he didn't fully grasp what God's plan was. Because let's be honest, if you and I had a plan to save mankind, it wouldn't be this one. I explained it last week. Making a public profession of your faith, surely there's got to be an easier way than water and wet and changing and in front of everybody. I wouldn't have come up with that, would you? No, I wouldn't have. But that's why it's so amazing when people do it. I think, that's faith. That's faith. But Peter didn't understand God's plan. And at that moment, Peter put his desires and plans ahead of God's. Know your calling. Know when someone's trying to control you. And number 3 is this. Know when to draw a line in the sand. Boundaries. Guardrails. Hey, I have people who like to control, and I'm sorry, you're going to have to be out there until you play nice with others. Period. I don't hate them. Matter of fact, I respect many of the control freaks in my life. Because at their very heart, they're the nicest, sweetest people, and they want truly the same thing. They just don't want to go the direction that we're taking. In Matthew 16, verse 23, it said, and Jesus returned to Peter and said, get away from me, Satan. You are a dangerous trap to me. Why? You are seeing things merely from a human point of view and not from God's. Can I say this really clear, Bay Staters? Jesus is not only good for getting to heaven. This book has all kinds of godly guidance for every stinking area of your life. So take all your experiences and throw them away that contradict what this book says. And that's where we have trouble with. Well, it's always been my experience that, I don't have time. I don't have time to ad lib. I'm sorry. And so I'm going to stay. But get away from Satan. You are dangerous trapped to me. Why? Because you're seeing things merely from a human point of view and not from God's. Get behind me. I have something to do. And you're not going the same direction. I wish you would, but I'm going there, I promise. Imagine if Jesus was codependent. What if Jesus got all timid and said, oh no, I don't want to upset Peter? Because that's what we do in church. You don't want to upset Vicky. She's a matriarch of the. Have you ever heard the matriarch? That's not in the Bible. Matriarch of the church. Why? Well, because she was a charter member. In the church I grew up in, she's been here since 1602. What the heck? I know she was old, but wow. But you ever been in church like that? And there's a select group of people that are in charge, and they're not following the Bible anymore. They're following their experience of what they think church should be. Anybody? That's real life, isn't it? And there's something weird. People love to be in charge of stuff. I don't get that. Peter manipulates Jesus. If you don't do this, you don't listen to me, I won't be your disciple anymore. I'll unfriend you on Facebook. I'm going to sit over here and pout and hold my breath. That'll show you. Have you ever seen this in real life? And it gets more disappointing the older the person is. Anybody? Am I the only one being honest about this? If I sat up here and said, I have trouble with Evan. I'm not even going to look over there. He made me mad. He said something. We were on a thread the other day, and I said, I think it was one Wednesday Night Lives, I said, I'm hard to offend. Now, that's not a challenge. It's something I've grown into. And he said, oh, that makes sense. Because he likes to offend me. And he's wondering what's taking me so long. Is that correct? Am I got that right? Yeah, something like that. Now, again, it's not a challenge. And God has actually said, oh, really? How about here? And I've been offended. So I'm going to grow in that. So what if, Peter, if you want to hold your breath, I'm still going to Jerusalem. I'm still going to do what I want to do, and I'm called to do, and it's my mission to do. And if you want to come, I'd love to have you. But if not, it's okay. Matter of fact, Jesus already knew that whole denying me 3 times. That's coming up too. So if you give control to a person, then God's not in control, is he? Someone else is. Peter's problem is you don't have in mind the things of God, but the things of man. I've tried to add reality and my experience and the things that have worked for me. Just because they worked for you doesn't make them right. The relationship you have is a combination of what you've created and what you've allowed. Your marriage is what you've created. Your parenting is what you've created. Siblings, friends, coworkers, boss, kids, those things. We've created healthy patterns, or we allow unhealthy ones. I've said it this way for years. This is a Brianism. I stole it. It's just something I found in many areas of my life. If you do not choose a goal, one will be assigned to you. And it works in all kinds of areas. I learned it in a public speaking conference. If you're up here and you don't have a goal of what I'm trying to get across to you, one will be assigned to me. And my teacher said, so if you go up and you think, you're going to, this is a salvation message, I want to get someone saved, but you're thinking, boy, I hope they like me. Guess what? They're going to like you. No one will get saved, but they'll like you because one was assigned to you. Did you see that? And then I'm finding this. You know what? If you don't have a goal for your marriage, one will be assigned to you. And you think it'd be a good one? No. That's been my experience. If you don't have a goal for raising your children, one will be assigned to you. And guess who will assign it? All right. That's just principle. That's principle. And so we create healthy patterns or we allow unhealthy ones. And if you don't like what you have, change what you expect or what you'll accept. I find this is a place, at least in the ministry, I have to visit a lot of times. You know what? I expect that we're all going to be excited about the same things. We actually talked in Rally. You know what? It's all right to come in here It's okay not to be okay. Would you agree? But you know what? We can't all not be okay at the same time. That's not even possible. But if we lift one another up, isn't that what church is? But some of you, let's admit it, you're control freaks, and you can't let us know that you're not all right. And a control freak in the mirror, this is why I know about this subject so well. I don't want to be ministered to because you might think my faith is shallow. But you know what? Life is crazy right now. Are you praying for me? All right, well, there you go. That's a freebie. Pray for your pastor. That's Bible. Don't pray against your pastor. Pray for your pastor. Got to be specific. But if you don't like what you have, change what you expect and what you'll accept. There's certain behavior I won't accept in God's house. If you are truly a powdery whiner and you're going to stomp your little feet and hold your little breath, go for it. I'm going to move around you and where God wants us to go as a church. Okay? Did that make sense? Okay. Now, expect something better. Will not accept disrespect, anger, tone, and I won't be treated like a child. I promise you that. Toddler throwing a fit. We used to have a saying at my house when we had toddlers, is we don't negotiate with terrorists. Adult, be the adult. Don't wear down. They know your limits. They know if I get to this certain decibel, I know I got mom. Did I make that up? No, that's the way that is. Not getting what I want, expect and accept. I love you, but I won't let you threaten me or heap guilt on me, and I'm not living under there. I'm going to draw a line in the sand, and I'm going to change the dynamics. I'll take no more of your shouting, your withdrawal, or your being a critical spirit. One pastor friend of mine taught me this, especially in ministry. There's a difference between a questioning spirit and questions. Because a questioning spirit is never satisfied and it's only rebellious. Always questioning, always questioning, always questioning. If you have an honest goodness question, transparency we got. So they hurt you, they're insecure. Is it difficult? Yes, no doubt about it. But when it comes to being a control freak, here's my thing, because again, I know this subject, because I am one. Control freaks want to play God. And they, well-meaning, but here's some free advice. Here's the news just in. There is a God, and it's not you. And it's not me. And the one that really is better at it than you are. Period. So do you have a power to change a spouse? I don't. Have you met my wife? Does God? Do you have the ability to control your kid's future? Does God? See how this works? And I'm out of time. And when we're recognizing that we don't have the power to control, we stop trying to be God and we surrender to Him. And that is why Jesus said right after this conversation with Peter in verse 24, full circle, then Jesus, after calling Peter Satan, said, listen, you are minding worldly things and not the things of God. He turns to his disciples and says, and if any of you want to be my followers, in verse 24, you must give up your own way. Stop being a control freak. It's not about you, princess. It's about Him. Take up your cross, that's sacrifice, and then follow me. Do what I do. And when you follow Jesus, this might be news to some of you. When you follow Jesus, you're not in control. And that's why it takes faith.